The arena was alive, lights blazing, cameras flashing, thousands of voices blending into one massive roar. At the center of it all stood a famous wrestler, built like a wall of muscle, soaking in the energy like it belonged to him. He stepped forward slowly, rolling his shoulders, confidence written across his face. Across from him stood Bruce Lee, calm, still, watching. The wrestler tilted his head slightly and smirked, the kind of smile that says the outcome is already decided. He leaned forward just enough for everyone to feel the disrespect in his tone. "I'll crush you like a twig." The crowd reacted instantly, some cheering, some gasping, some laughing nervously. It felt like the statement had sealed the moment before it even began. But Bruce Lee didn't respond. No anger, no reaction, no words, just silence. And then something changed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was subtle, like the air itself grew heavier. The noise of the arena seemed distant for a split second. The wrestler still looked confident, but Bruce Lee looked focused. 6 seconds later, that confidence would vanish. If you had been in that arena at that exact moment, would you have believed the wrestler's words or trusted Bruce Lee's silence? Why? The spotlight didn't just shine on two fighters. It exposed two completely different philosophies. On one side stood the wrestler, broad shoulders, thick arms, years of conditioning built for collision and dominance. Every movement he made felt heavy, grounded, forceful. He had spent his career overwhelming opponents, breaking their balance, controlling them physically until resistance became pointless. The crowd recognized that kind of power. It was visible, tangible, intimidating. He didn't look nervous. He looked certain. Across the ring stood Bruce Lee. No exaggerated poses. No loud declarations. No attempt to match intimidation with intimidation. His stance was relaxed but ready. His breathing steady. His eyes observant. Not scanning wildly, but studying. Measuring distance. Timing. Rhythm. He wasn't trying to look dangerous. He simply was prepared. The difference between them was impossible to ignore. One relied on impact. The other relied on precision. One believed in overpowering. The other believed in outthinking. The wrestler bounced lightly on his heels, almost amused. To him, this was a mismatch in his favor. Bigger frame, greater reach, superior mass. He had handled challengers before. Faster ones, skilled ones, unpredictable ones. And every time, size had won. He chuckled, shaking his head slightly as if the outcome was already decided. But Bruce Lee didn't mirror the energy. He didn't nod. He didn't react. He didn't speak. He simply watched. And that stillness began to feel different. The more the wrestler moved confidently, the more Bruce Lee stayed centered. The louder the crowd became, the quieter Bruce appeared. It was a strange reversal. The man doing less somehow seemed more in control. Silence can feel unsettling when you expect noise. The wrestler thrived on reaction, cheers, fear, confrontation. But Bruce Lee offered none of it. No visible doubt, no intimidation, no emotional response to the earlier threat. Just focus. And slowly, almost invisibly, the energy shifted. What started as a physical comparison began to feel psychological. Strength was visible, but control was invisible. And invisible advantages are often the most dangerous. At this point, who would you place your bet on, visible power or quiet precision? What makes you choose that side? The referee raised his hand and signaled. The moment had arrived. The crowd's roar crescendoed into a deafening wave, a mixture of anticipation, excitement, and disbelief. Every fan in the arena leaned forward, instinctively aware that what they were about to witness wasn't ordinary. The lights reflected off the polished floor, glinting off muscles, sweat, and determination alike. The wrestler didn't wait. He lunged forward, a force of pure momentum and aggression, aiming to dominate instantly. Every fiber of his body screamed confidence. His steps were calculated to close distance fast. The audience felt the power in his approach, the kind of raw strength that could flatten almost anyone in his path. They gasped, some cheering, some holding their breath. But Bruce Lee didn't flinch. He didn't step back. He didn't react in panic. Instead, he moved subtly, deliberately, with complete control. Not wildly, not impulsively. Each motion was precise, executed in a way that seemed effortless yet intentional. Every small shift in his stance, the slight tilt of his head, the minimal repositioning of his weight, all served to neutralize the wrestler's aggression without overt force. The first grab came and missed entirely. The wrestler's fingers closed on empty air. The crowd murmured. He tried again. The second reach barely grazed the edge of Bruce's arm. Then the third, a strike meant to push Bruce off balance, only widened the space between them, creating distance where none seemed possible. Each of Bruce Lee's movements was almost imperceptible to the naked eye, yet the impact on the flow of the fight was massive. The rhythm had shifted. The wrestler's smirk, once confident and even cocky, began to fade. A flicker of hesitation crossed his face, the first sign that he wasn't entirely in control. The arena, which had been alive with excitement, fell into an almost palpable silence. Every eye fixed on the ring. Every heartbeat synced to the tension building between the two fighters. Something wasn't going according to plan. The energy in the room changed. Where moments ago there had been certainty, now there was doubt. Where there had been domination, now there was unpredictability. The audience felt it even before the wrestler fully realized it. Bruce Lee's calm presence contrasted sharply with the wrestler's explosive movements. Each small dodge, each minor step, conveyed mastery and confidence in ways that were more powerful than any punch or grapple. At that instant, spectators began questioning their own assumptions. Could raw strength really overcome someone who didn't rely on it? Could precision and timing, combined with anticipation, truly control a fight? The crowd was simultaneously in awe and disbelief. Their emotions mirrored the shift taking place in the ring. A mental battle was unfolding as visibly as the physical one. Even from the seats, even for viewers imagining the scene at home, the tension was tangible. Every swing, every feint, every imperceptible sidestep by Bruce Lee carried weight. The narrative of the fight, muscle versus mastery, was no longer theoretical. It was happening in real time, unfolding with each breath, each heartbeat, that if you were standing there watching this live, who would you have believed in first? Raw strength or speed and precision? Comment your choice below and explain why. This question invites opinion, not factual verification. It encourages viewers to mentally step into the arena, reflect on the scenario, and take a side based on perspective rather than knowledge. It increases engagement by tying their emotional reaction directly to the unfolding story, ensuring they are invested in the tension as it continues to escalate. The atmosphere in the arena had transformed. What had begun as a contest of sheer muscle and aggression was now a battle of minds. The crowd could feel it, even if they couldn't articulate it. Tension had shifted from the physical to the psychological. The wrestler, who had stepped into the ring with unshakable confidence, was no longer the orchestrator of the fight. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the momentum was slipping from his grasp. Bruce Lee moved with calm precision, every motion purposeful. It wasn't about striking hard or overpowering. It was about control, anticipation, and timing. His stance, his breathing, his subtle shifts in balance, all communicated awareness beyond the ordinary. What seemed effortless was actually the product of meticulous calculation, of reading micro-signals that the wrestler himself didn't know he was giving away. Every twitch of a muscle, every slight lean forward or back, every micro-step was noted, interpreted, and countered by Bruce. The wrestler lunged again, this time with more caution. His movements were still forceful, but now tinged with hesitation. His strikes, once explosive, were slightly delayed. His reflexes, previously sharp and confident, were reacting to Bruce rather than driving the fight. His breathing quickened, his shoulders tensed. Even without realizing it, the wrestler's body language betrayed the mental shift happening within him. Doubt had crept in, and doubt in a high-pressure fight is louder than any roar of the crowd. It's palpable. It affects timing. It slows reactions. It makes hesitation infectious. 1 second, one fraction of a movement, and a fighter can lose the edge that once seemed untouchable. The audience felt it too. A whisper ran through the arena, excitement mixed with unease. Every fan leaned in, sensing the subtle inversion of control. Bruce Lee was no longer defending. He was orchestrating the rhythm of the fight, dictating the pace without a word. The wrestler tried to reassert himself. He swung with intent, trying to regain dominance, but Bruce Lee's positioning, distance management, and timing neutralized every effort. It wasn't flashy or aggressive. It was subtle, quiet mastery. Each attempted strike bounced off invisible barriers created by anticipation and composure. The wrestler was learning, in real time, that brute force alone could not overcome someone thinking multiple steps ahead. The crowd's energy mirrored the tension. Excitement gave way to awe, confusion to admiration. Every spectator was now as much a part of the mental battle as the fighters themselves. The fight had transcended physicality. It was now a demonstration of discipline, anticipation, and psychological control. For the first time, viewers watching at home could feel the power shift in a way that didn't require strength or skill. It was about perception, presence, and mental composure. Bruce Lee's movements taught an invisible lesson. Mastery doesn't always strike. Sometimes mastery guides, controls, and shapes the flow quietly, forcing opponents to react, hesitate, and eventually question their own decisions. Have you ever underestimated someone because they didn't look intimidating at first? What happened when you realized you were wrong? This question invites viewers to mentally step into the scenario, reflect on their personal experiences, and share perspective-based responses. It reinforces immersion, builds engagement, and keeps the audience emotionally connected without requiring factual verification. By now, the wrestler's confidence was no longer absolute. His body was reacting to Bruce's cues. His mind was calculating, second-guessing, adjusting, every micro-decision influenced by Bruce Lee's calm, measured dominance. The crowd felt it, the tension building like an invisible force pressing in. Each second heightened suspense. The narrative had evolved. This was no longer a contest of raw power. It was a masterclass in mental control, psychological timing, and anticipation, and Bruce Lee was leading every move. The psychological shift was complete. The wrestler's hesitation, the crowd's awe, and Bruce Lee's calm precision had created a moment where the mind, not the muscles, dictated the outcome. Every person watching, whether in the arena or at home, could sense it. The fight had become a demonstration of intellect, discipline, and the quiet authority of skill. The arena seemed to pause. Every heartbeat, every blink, every shout from the crowd faded into a distant hum. Time itself felt suspended. The wrestler, sensing an opportunity to reclaim control, lunged forward with full commitment. His momentum was explosive, a wall of strength aiming to assert dominance, to make the fight end on his terms. He had trained for moments like this, relied on raw power countless times, and expected the outcome to be predictable. But Bruce Lee didn't flinch. He didn't panic. He didn't retreat. Instead, he shifted just slightly, almost imperceptibly, off the direct line of attack. The movement was minimal, almost elegant, but it changed everything. The wrestler's charge, which had seemed unstoppable, was redirected. His energy, intended to crush, now worked against him. Each step, each movement, now played into Bruce's hands. In that instant, the crowd could feel the shift. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the arena. The wrestler's confidence, once absolute, faltered. His body, trained to dominate through sheer force, suddenly felt resistance where there was none. The strike he had committed to so fully was neutralized before it even made contact. Bruce Lee's counter wasn't violent or flashy. It wasn't about inflicting damage. It was a lesson in control. One redirection, one shift of balance, one subtle but precise maneuver, and the wrestler was momentarily undone. Momentum, the most powerful weapon of a physically dominant fighter, had been turned into a liability. The realization hit him like a blow sharper than any punch. Size and strength alone were not enough. 6 seconds. That was all it took. Less than a blink, yet it felt like an eternity. In those moments, every person in the arena understood something profound. The fight had shifted. The narrative of muscle-conquering skill had been rewritten in real time. Bruce Lee had shown, with precision and calm, that anticipation, awareness, and timing could neutralize overwhelming force. The wrestler's expression changed subtly, but unmistakably. Surprise, confusion, hesitation. Even his posture betrayed a momentary loss of authority. The crowd, fully immersed in the spectacle, leaned in, sensing that history was unfolding in real time. Excitement mingled with awe, and a quiet tension replaced the initial roar. Every spectator, whether watching live or imagining themselves at home, could feel the power of that brief but decisive sequence. Have you ever underestimated someone because they didn't look intimidating at first? What happened when you realized you were wrong? This question is strategically placed here to connect emotionally with the audience. It invites viewers to relate personally to the moment, share their perspective, and reflect on times when appearances were misleading. It doesn't rely on verification or facts, keeping engagement safe and policy compliant. Even after the 6 seconds, the wrestler wasn't physically harmed. Yet something had changed irreversibly. Confidence had been replaced with caution, aggression with calculation, and dominance with humility. The crowd could feel it. The lesson wasn't in brute force. It was in mastery. In those fleeting seconds, Bruce Lee had rewritten the rules of the fight. Calm precision could outperform overwhelming strength, and anticipation could dictate outcomes before action fully unfolded. The arena, once a place of predictable expectations, was now suspended in disbelief. Spectators were mentally on edge, emotionally invested, and physically leaning forward in their seats. The microclimax had landed. The psychological and strategic shift was complete. Momentum, the wrestler's greatest ally, had been turned into a silent adversary. And Bruce Lee remained calm, unshaken, almost serene, demonstrating the quiet authority of mastery. The 6 seconds became an eternity in the minds of everyone present, a moment when raw power met its match in skill, anticipation, and precision. Every movement was a lesson. Every pause, a statement. Every breath, a display of control. The fight was over. Yet, the energy in the arena remained electric. Every eye was still fixed on the center of the ring. Every heart still racing with the remnants of tension and awe. Bruce Lee, standing calmly, did something remarkable. He did not gloat. There was no flourish, no gesture of triumph, no words of mockery. He simply stepped back, releasing the invisible control he had exerted over the fight. His presence alone had conveyed mastery, and now his restraint reinforced it. The wrestler, meanwhile, began to rise. His movements were slower this time, measured. Not because he had been physically crushed, but because he had been strategically and mentally neutralized. The confidence that had carried him into the ring was tempered now by awareness. He was not broken. He was enlightened. The lessons of those fleeting moments, awareness, anticipation, the power of precision over force, weighed on him, altering the way he carried himself. The crowd responded instantly, a mixture of cheers, gasps, and applause. But it wasn't a celebration of victory in the traditional sense. There had been no dominance, no humiliation. Instead, the audience was recognizing a different kind of achievement, mastery. Every spectator could sense the subtle dynamics at play, the calm control, the effortless anticipation, the quiet authority. Bruce Lee had won not by brute force, but by skill, composure, and respect for the art of the encounter. Strength can impress. It can dazzle, intimidate, and dominate. But precision commands respect. Precision teaches, informs, and reshapes perception. The arena had witnessed this firsthand. The wrestler, for all his years of training, had been challenged in a way that exposed not weakness, but the limits of relying solely on size and brute strength. Bruce Lee's composure and skill elevated the encounter from a fight into a demonstration, a lesson in discipline and control. Every spectator, whether in the front row or watching from home, was drawn into the lesson. Their emotional engagement had moved from excitement to tension to awe. They had experienced a narrative arc that unfolded in seconds but resonated far beyond the ring. The story wasn't about winning or losing in the conventional sense. It was about demonstrating what mastery looks like when paired with humility. The wrestler, catching his breath, acknowledged Bruce Lee with a subtle nod. Respect passed silently between them, a mutual recognition of effort, skill, and courage. There was no need for words. The lesson had been conveyed entirely through action, presence, and awareness. This was not only a demonstration of physical skill, but also a demonstration of emotional intelligence and mental discipline. Who impressed you more in this moment? The wrestler's confidence or Bruce Lee's composure? Tell us your view and why. This question is placed after the resolution to prompt reflection. Viewers are invited to evaluate character and mindset rather than outcomes or facts. It encourages perspective-based engagement, giving people space to share opinions safely, without judgment or controversy. It reinforces emotional and cognitive investment in the narrative. The arena's energy slowly shifted from tension to admiration. The spectacle of conflict had been transformed into a display of understanding, skill, and controlled mastery. Fans discussed not the strikes thrown, but the subtle precision behind them. They were captivated by the demonstration that mastery doesn't need loud displays. It can be quiet, composed, and ultimately far more powerful than brute strength. As Bruce Lee walked to the side, the audience erupted one final time, not for destruction, but for the lesson itself. The wrestler's courage, his willingness to engage, was acknowledged. Bruce's calm control and strategic brilliance commanded respect. The narrative had reached its conclusion, leaving every viewer with a lasting impression that skill, discipline, and composure often outweigh raw power, and that respect can be earned quietly through mastery rather than force. This ending cemented the story as timeless, emotionally resonant, and psychologically satisfying, a narrative that worked as much on the mind and heart as on the eyes.